Good morning. This is the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting. This is a regular meeting. It is Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. It is 9:17 a.m. This session is set to go until noon today. We're at 3000 Pacific Avenue, room 110 for public virtual attendance. You may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. Before we start our agenda, I know there's been some changes, but I'll go ahead and do introductions first and then I'll pass it to the county manager. I'm Carolina Mejia. I'm the chair of the board. To my right is Vice Chair Ty Menser. To my left is Commissioner Gary Edwards. Also in the boardroom, we have County Manager Ramiro Chavez, as well as Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had to update the agenda yesterday for this morning, and that was less than 24 hours. So I'll recommend for the board to introduce a motion to approve the agenda as presented today.
Thank you. I would actually, we do have a PAC agenda. I'm wondering for homeless strategies, is there anything pressing that needs to be presented today, or can it wait until next week?
We can just wait till next week, yeah.
Is there something that commissioners need to ask our homeless strategies team?
You need to approve the agenda.
We have to approve it before we're moving an item? We can't amend the agenda?
You can just move on from that item.
Okay.
You're discussing an item that's already on the agenda.
Okay, I thought since we were still discussing the agenda that I could remove an item before it being
you want to
approved.
remove it, okay.
Yes, and then have the presentation for next week. Okay, any questions, comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the new proposed agenda with the addition of removing item 1.
Is there a second?
And that's as presented, right?
And with removing item 1, homeless strategies, yeah.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? I'll call for a vote.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menser?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the review of the Board of County Commissioners. So if Keely or Tom is on, you guys can jump off.
Unless they're here for another.
Unless you're here for another matter, yeah. Review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for a meeting of March 14th, 2023. So we'll start off, we'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Menser. Then as the approval of the Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 agenda. Next, there will be an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I will follow up on the comment that you received last week from Mr. Pettit related to the expenditures related to the atrium. This matter has been discussed with the board back in, I believe it's February 7, 2023, both and the agenda setting as well as in the afternoon. And Robin Campbell provided all the supporting documentation. The appropriations was approved, legal, and the expenditures associated with the atrium was also approved and legal. So I will just follow up on that, stating this matter was discussed with the board at length, both on agenda setting and February 7th, as well as in the afternoon on the board meeting of February 7th as well, 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
I guess my only question would be on that issue is, being as it is being addressed at this point, I take it legal must have said, hey, we've covered everything. Are we gonna hear that in a meeting today as we move forward by legal, or are you passing on what legal has said?
Well,
was that the question, was whether it was legal?
No, I think it's the legal aspects is what you approve via ordinances and resolutions, and that is the legal context in which appropriations are provided and expenditures associated with those appropriations are issued. And the legality aspect of that is what Robin provided to you on February 7th through the resolutions and ordinances that you approved.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Commissioner Menser? Okay, with that, we'll move on to consent items A through D. Item 3A is resolution for classification from human resources.
Madam Chair, if I can cover both items, item A and B are related to.
Yeah, and item B is a resolution of classifying position and moving it from the Thurston County Pay and Classification Pay Plan to the Management and Technical Pay Plan. Go ahead, Ramiro.
Thank you. Item 3A is related to the last step of the reclassification overview we provided to you back in June of 2022 related to the Central Services overall restructuring. And this is again the last step in the process for you to consider creating a new job classification of the Capital Projects Planning Manager. Creating the classification, you do not create a position. So my apologies that I was mixing the terms last week. So the first step is for you to create a new classification. And the next step on item B is for you to consider reclassifying an existing position to the new classification. So, and that is probably the step B. So item 3B is for you to consider the reclassification of that technician 2 position to the newly created classifications of Capital Projects Planning Manager. On the item 3B, the impact on the budget is from $5,880 to $9,857, an increase of $3,977 per month, or 68%. And we're not asking for you to consider additional appropriation on the existing budget because this has been part of the overall plan. This is just the last administrative process on the reorganization briefing that we provided to you back in June 2022. Any questions?
Commissioner Edwards.
Haven't we always had a capital projects manager position?
No, this is a
What-
brand new classification.
Well, what
We
were
have-
the other fellows that?
We have capital project managers, 1, 2, 3 series, but this is a planning manager who will have supervision of the unit and also do long-term capital and asset.
And that's different, different than what we've done in the past?
Yes.
Okay.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer? Okay, no questions from me. I remember the presentation. I guess just one question, will this be the last position in kind of that whole puzzle piece that you showed us, the whole puzzle that you showed us?
Yeah, this is the last one in the central services reorganization.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item C, resolution to title classification specification and move from the management pay plan to the at-will pay plan.
Thank you. I also gave a heads up to the board that will bring this item for your consideration. It was not included in the agenda, but I give you a perspective. And this is related to the current position, the Advanced Life Support Program Manager, and that is the Ben Miller Todd's old position. It has been very difficult to recruit for that position. So the recommendation is to do 2 things. And moving this particular position into the at-will plan that will allow a little more flexibility on the recruitment process. And by doing so, we are not asking for any salary changes. It's just in moving this position from the MTP plan to the at-will plan, and that will give certainly more options for recruitment. Any questions?
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer? Okay, moving on to Public Works. Thank you, Maria.
You got off easy.
Appointment to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
Yeah, thank you. Follow up the direction of the board. This is for you to consider the appointment of Kristen Presley from the Town of Bucota, representative of the Thurston County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. And that will be for the remainder term. From the previous Town of Bucota representative, they will expire in March 2024. This is somewhat of an administrative process. Each of the cities provide a recommendation as to the representatives or towns, representatives to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. And this has been the result of that process from the town of Yokota.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner
No
Edwards?
questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Munzer? Okay, and that will conclude the consent agenda. Moving on to department items. Item 4A from the Auditor's Office, approval of the voucher list for the week of February 20th, 2023.
Thank you, Madam Chair. These items in your department items for you to consider approving the voucher list for the week of February 20th, 2023 for a combined amount of $2,434,376.48. The reason is in the department item is because we're still having some small expenditures related to the tenant improvements here at the atrium. And there's also some expenditures related to the ongoing lease payments for the building as well as the parking lot. They're part of that. That is just the ongoing. And I believe the board like to have this item until the remnants of the expenditures related to specifically the tenant improvements. I just went through the new voucher list. I think it's diminishing those expenditures. The overall expenditures were close to $100 in the next voucher list. So it's coming to an end.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, questions, Commissioner Munzer? Okay, emergency services, item 5A, Child Care Action Council Services Agreement.
This item, as I said last week, you reviewed this item maybe a month ago. And this is particular related to a contract with Medic One and the Child Care Action Council for Safe Kids Coalition activities. That includes, but not limited to, ensure availability of discounted helmets to child care facilities and family medical practices, provide support technicians to check car seats, and provide car seats to low-income families in Thurston County. When you reviewed this item maybe a month ago, you asked the question whether within the contract, we have some translation services. So we took a step back. We had a conversation with the Child Care Action Council, and as part of the scope of work that is today for your consideration includes translation services as needed in Korean, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And those are the main prevalent three languages they are spoken here in Thurston County, in addition to English, of course. And for your consideration is to approve this contract. There is $42,501 per year for a 3-year period of $127,503. And this is covered by Medic One. And Ben is here to add additional perspective.
Ben, anything you'd like to add?
The county manager covered that perfectly, Commissioner.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Maybe for the public to understand this, doesn't this have to do with a state law that requires those populations of a certain percentage, when they finally get to a certain point, that's a service that the county is required to provide?
Get up to 5% of the.
Is that what it is? Okay, and so we've reached that threshold, now we're meeting the county law.
I believe Spanish is in Vietnamese. I can't remember the other one, but yeah.
Anyway, that's the whole intent of it. Okay, thank you.
But maybe I can probably do is, in addition to the requirements that we need to do in any type of business for translator services, I think is a good way to reach out to other members of the community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Question?
No, addressed this last week and also individually with Ben yesterday, so good.
Okay. Moving on to Public Works, item 6A, resolution appointing acting county road engineer.
Thank you, Commissioners. You reviewed this item as well last week. As you're aware, our current county engineer, Scott Lindblom, has submitted his resignation. His last day is this week. So I wish him well after so many years of service here in Thurston County. He has been an institution, and was anything but appreciation from my point of view to Scott Lindblom for everything he has done for not just for the county, but also to the community as a whole here in Thurston County. So it requires the RCW 36.80 as well as the Washington Administrative Code 13612-030 for the board, the legislative authority to formally, via resolution, to appoint an interim county engineer in this case for you to consider appointing Mike Unselman to serve as the interim county road engineer for a period of not to exceed 6 months. And we're certain that when the 6-month period will bring a resolution for you to consider a formal appointment. And that's where it is. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
My only question would be, why do we want to limit ourselves to that time frame, just in case things don't go as planned? Is there a reason for doing that?
Because that put some energy in all of us to make sure that we find the next replacement.
Does Matt get paid additional to serve?
Yes,
in this
well,
role?
what we use is a temporary pay increase, yes.
I don't have any questions, just would like to thank Matt for stepping up to this role. It's gonna be a learning curve, so thank you.
Karen, would you like to add anything?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 6B, the right-of-way detention and the plat of Boston Harbor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You also reviewed this item last week, and this is back in May 5th, 2021, is the hearing examiner review a request for a vacation of right-of-way in the Boston Harbor area. The result of that, the hearing examiners agreed there is not a public need, and they forward that recommendation to the board. The Board of County Commissioners adopted the hearing examiner's recommendation under resolution number 16065 with a condition that the compensation should be met, and that condition has already been met. And the compensation the county will receive as a result of this vacation is $10,056. And Craig Season is here to answer any questions. Again, this is just the last step in the vacation process they already considered a couple of years ago.
Thank you. Greg, anything you'd like to add?
I have nothing to add, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Craig, is this the plat from 1905?
1907, yes.
07, okay. Thank you.
Good memory.
After that, we will review our standing items, and at 4:30, we will have Board of Health. Yeah, let's go to the Board of Health so that way there's congruency.
Okay, we're gonna be called to order at 4:30. We will start with approval of agenda, opportunity for public to address Board of Health. We'll have a proclamation for International Transgender Visibility Day. Anything you need to know there?
I do have it confirmed that some representatives from a local organization called PFLAG are going to be in attendance to accept.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? The next presentation under 4A will be opioid and fentanyl epidemic update. And we have some slides, I believe, here in the coroner's office.
The coroner's as well as the prosecuting attorney's office will be here.
Thank you, sir.
The presenter will be the coroner, or?
Who's taking the lead on the presentation, David?
I believe, excuse me, I believe the coroner will. And I'll provide some context as well, but I believe it'll be the coroner.
If I may, the sheriff's office also has representatives available as well, because they're going to, I believe, take over the portion of the slides that they've provided for the opioid task force update.
Is that, are those slides included in here?
There should have been 2 sets of slides in there.
Okay. I don't know if I have 2 sets of slides, but.
Check the back of your packet.
Yeah. Okay, all right, thank you. Thick packet today. Throwing me off. All right, so we've got those two. All right, so it'll be kind of a tag team effort then from our coroner, prosecutor, and director of public health. Any questions there?
Questions?
Item 5A will be a permitting option for temporary food establishments. Sammy Berg's going to be the presenter. David, what?
Yeah, I don't see Sammy. I'll take it really quick. So this is a follow-up. We had a presentation to the board, the last Board of Health meeting about the pop-ups. And then for this meeting, we're hoping to get approval from the board for kind of a confirmation of the process we'll be using going forward. So last week was more education. This week will be an action we would want the board to take.
Questions there?
No, sir.
All right. Next item is noxious weed prescriptions. Mike Murphy's present.
Yep.
Can you give us a summary of what we're going to be trying to accomplish?
Yes, I'm going to present 5 different species that we need prescriptions approved for, and just tell you about their distribution and the prescription that we want approved, the integrated pest management.
So you have 5 prescriptions that have gone through the PIVMAC approval process, and now they're to the Board of Health for final approval?
Yes, and Patrick Soderberg will be following up at the end of my presentation to review that PIVMAC process.
Any questions, Commissioners?
I guess my only question would be, are we having any new chemicals, products being used this year that have not been used in the past?
Nope, all of these chemicals are currently on some of the prescriptions that we already are approved for.
County Manager.
Mike, last week when we reviewed this item, Commissioner Edwards had some questions related to the expenditures related to this potential or the financial elements and components of those 2 prescriptions. Will you be ready to address those this afternoon?
I think so. They're all in such low numbers right now that I don't know if I can talk specifically about it, but
as long as you will address that question this afternoon, that will be good.
Okay, sounds good.
No big change would be a good enough answer for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then item 7 is alternate health officer appointment. David Bain.
We recommend that item to be removed. I believe, David, can you provide the background as to what considered?
Yeah, I got an email late last night from Dr. Miller, who's the regional medical officer for our region, who we would ask to be our backup. He notified me that the State Department of Health is actually working through a series of protocols and processes for how those health officers work with our local health jurisdictions. I want to see that agreement before I set this resolution up for you guys. So he's supposed to send me a copy of the resolution, and I will let you guys know kind of what it says, because I don't want to pass a resolution without knowing what the agreement looks like from the state's end.
Do we have a backup health officer or health officers right now? Or are we without?
So when, and I believe the state is obligated to provide the backup at some point.
Yeah, so if we were in an emergency situation, we could ask the state to step in. They have the authorization to do that right now. This would be more of what we're trying to accomplish is more of a formal long-term process for how we do this. But if we were in a pinch, we could rely on the state's health officers and their designees if we needed to.
This is part of the overall new legislation for the Board of Health. So it increased the membership as well as created the regions. And they hire specific health officers within the regions to really be part of that process and serve as a backup to the local health officers. So that's part of the overall new law that passed 2 years ago, correct?
Yes. And the other thing I'm going to mention too, which I should have mentioned, is we actually technically could also use any health officer in the state from other counties as well. So if we needed to reach out to Mason County or to King County even, we could request their assistance as well.
I know that Dr. Abdulmalik had some upcoming travel that we were trying to.
Yeah, we have time for it. I confirm that.
Questions from the board members on this? Okay, so this will not be on this episode.
Yep, I'd like to move that to next month's meeting.
Okay, then item 8 is, which will become 7, is fiscal subcommittee discussion. This is really about, we can ask for volunteer, we can explain, maybe David, you could explain what we're trying to accomplish here, and then we can either ask for volunteers or seed the thought and ask for volunteers next month if nobody's really sure, needs to think about it. But we need to describe kind of what this committee would be addressing and, give folks a sense of what the time, it might be a monthly meeting at a different, that would be arranged among committee members. Whatever you think the pertinent information is for folks to decide whether or not they want to step up and volunteer to do this. And this is the idea is trying to get a subcommittee in place before, so we can start the work on foundational public health funding recommendations, so we don't get, hit in the fall like we did last time with kind of a fait accompli. So we would like to this could be a pretty short item, or, depending on if you want to discuss it, that's fine, but it's really just laying out, here's what it is. We need, I think, 3 Board of Health members we're going to ask to volunteer and be part of it. And if hands are raised, we can get going, and if not, we'll take it up formally next month. County Manager and then Commissioner Edwards.
Just procedurally, for your consideration will be if the conversation moves in the direction the Board of Health would like to create, the subcommittee will be, that's the action for your consideration here. Move to create the fiscal subcommittee of the Board of Health. And after that, then you as the chair may consider entertaining who would like to serve in that committee.
So even in the absence of volunteers, we can create the subcommittee as our action for today's meeting.
I think you're right. Bring in this conversation and provide what is the value added to create a subcommittee. I think is a good next step. This conversation occurred maybe last year, but I believe the Board of Health needed to get a little more into the business, but I think it's timely for you to consider.
Whatever additional elements beyond foundational public health, because they're kind of familiar with that because they saw that, at least in brief, but if there are other things they're going to be asked to weigh in on, it'd be good to lay that out so they kind of know, maybe get excited about some of the things they'll get to work on, or just have a good sense of it at least.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think it'll be useful, obviously, for the board to have a better understanding of the foundational public health services, but also our overall budget, just sort of generally. I don't want folks to look at FPHS in a vacuum, if that makes sense. So I think there's room for conversation beyond that. And of course, I think this opens the door for the board to also create other subcommittees down the line as they see fit for other topics.
Yep. Okay. And somehow we'll have someone from county financial staff, but in the middle of that interaction, I take it, right?
If the board creates the fiscal subcommittee, there will be appropriate step to support the board members going through this process. Absolutely, it will not. Yeah, the fiscal staff, county
It's
staff.
going to add a little more work for
But I think I believe it's absolutely important to engage the rest of the Board of Health members into the, the process, the very dynamic process of developing a budget.
I guess because the Board of Health, that umbrella, if you will, is such a big piece of our budget. I'm almost wondering if the state has said they were going to fund costs having to do with this new Board of Health creation. It wouldn't be worth checking maybe with others that have already done it, but if we couldn't have a financial person in Robin's shop paid for by the state to supply the interaction that the health department will need. Just something worth asking. I know we don't get all of our billing through the health department quite right all the time, timely. So why not go back to the state and say, you've created this process. Now, as part of the process, we need to have a fiscal element attached, and why not have them pay for one of your people instead of taking one of your people now and give them a new assignment? That's all.
Thank you.
Just
Well,
wondered
I
about it.
appreciate that. One of the budget analysts, Jennifer Smith, does spend a significant amount of her time with public health. And I expect we will be supporting the Board of Health as they, the subcommittee starts to learn about the budget.
I don't want the state giving us new duties and saying they're gonna support us and then not. And they won't do it if we don't ask. And
Imagine that they would tell us to use part of our foundational public health money, but it
well, at least
depends on if we can-
get it locked in forever or
Yeah,
something.
we'll follow up on that, Commissioner. Yeah, that's a good
Something to
point.
look at. It's additional work for your people.
And David's team too.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's item 8, we'll have health officers report and then adjourn. We do have a proclamation schedule, and attached to that is the transgender visibility date. One of the board members had suggested that we, some other jurisdictions do proclamations where kind of each board member reads a whereas, which I think is a fine suggestion. So I may, just heads up, I may ask for that to kind of go down the line. So have your copy handy. So each board member reads a whereas, and then we finish
No,
up.
that's a new one, yeah.
I guess Lacey does that, and board member Vasquez suggested that, so I'll just start at the end and we'll just head down the line. Okay.
Right, we're gonna be running out of whereases.
Well, this one doesn't have a lot, yeah, but some of them, usually there's more than this.
Yeah, but that's a good idea.
Okay, so that would, I think that covers, yep, that should cover
I
us.
do have a question for Board of Health, and do we have an update on our 8th member?
Eighth member
On
from
our
tribal.
8th,
David, I haven't received any update from the tribal representative, so David, do you?
Nope, I also have not been able to hear back from the American Indian Health Commission.
is it that they're having, because at this point, we can engage our tribes and be like, they're looking for prospects, right? And they can send names up there, right? If that's like, what's the issue? And is it that they're having trouble, like, getting names from each of the tribes? And if so, we can contact, we just had a meeting yesterday with the Nisqually tribe, and they did a great presentation for us, and so I'm wondering kind of what the issue is and kind of getting that name on there. And I know that we have 3 tribes, but as I'm looking at other counties, they've already gotten their appointments and they've had multiple tribes too. So I'm wondering kind of what the issue is for Thurston.
Yeah, I'm genuinely not clear, Commissioner, on what is happening there. I think the goal was for the AIHC, the Indian Health Commission, to be essentially like the broker for each of these appointments. But But I know that they've struggled with staffing and other things on their end. So I can't speak to it. I've not been able to hear back from AHC at this point on what's going on. So I think it's maybe worth a future conversation about what we can do on our own as a county to reach out to the other 3 tribes. And I'll want to confirm with the state to make sure that that's an appropriate process. I don't know that it's in statute that the AHC has to be the ones to do this. I want to confirm that before we go that route.
Even if it's for them to send names up to the AIC, I don't know. I feel like the intent of the full Board of Health is not really met until we have the complete 8 members. And I feel like that's an important piece that we're missing.
Completely agree.
So, thank you.
Yeah, I think the law does require that, but it doesn't necessarily say we couldn't reach out. I just want to make sure that whatever we do is done, you know, if we do a letter and then send it to the leaders of the 3 simultaneously, it's clear that we've reached out to all 3 so that it doesn't end up being kind of ad hoc, which could, I think, get us in trouble. And I do think that the option is there, and the tribes are certainly have the option to not participate. But I want to make sure they certainly know that we fully want them to. So there's that ultimate sort of balance to strike. So yeah, if you could find out more about the status, then the board could probably take it from there in terms of what we want to do. Okay, I think that's Board of Health for today.
Okay. So next, we're going to review the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for a meeting of March 21st, 2023. We'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards, and then there's the approval of the Tuesday, March 21st agenda. Next is an opportunity for the public to address the board and county manager's update.
I will follow up with any updates depending on the public testimony you may.
Thank you. And next will be consent items 3A through 3C. Item 3A from Community Planning and Economic Development is Thurston County hearing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thurston County contracts with Ms. Sharon Rice of Sharon Rice Hearing Examiners PLLC to serve as the hearing examiners and administrative hearing officer for public health, social services, as well as other matters. So we have a current contract with her that goes from January 1st, 2022, which is already signed, through December 31st, 2025. Within the contract, there is a clause that is to address anticipated rate increases. So this particular amendment addresses that clause on that contract. Starting January 2023, we have rate increases on those services. And Sharon Rice does not have a change on the rate. It's $175. It continues to be $175. Leanne Towil, she is the legal research decision preparation, goes from I believe from $99 to $110. Lauren Spaeth, she is the paralegal, and the hourly rate from $38.5 to $44. And Michael Woosley, which the editor and writer the part of professional documents, goes from $38.50 to $44. That is the amendment, and we have Jeremy here to add additional perspective.
Good morning, Commissioners. I do want to note that the current rate and just to clarify, the current rate for the contractor hourly rate is 10% less. Our previous contract had a 10% overage that the hearing examiner could charge to cover administrative costs of subcontracting with those folks. So the actual rate change for Leanna Towil, it increases by $1 from $99 to $100 plus the 10%. And then Laurel Spieth increases from $38.50 to $40 plus the 10%, which is $44. And then Michelle Woolsey increases from $38.50 to $40 plus the 10%. So it's a very small increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Edwards.
Do you think it's probably the cost of doing business? I mean, CPI and inflation? Is that what we're dealing with here today?
I would hate to speculate, Commissioner Edwards, but that is a possibility. The rate increase was contemplated with the original contract approval last year that this may be coming up.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Munster?
No.
Thank you. No questions for me. Item 3B is Human Resources, Washington County's Risk Pool, appointment of representative Brian Bishop.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. This requires a board action to formally approve the representatives to the Washington County's Risk Pool. And the list in front of you is for you to consider to continue to appoint Commissioner Gary Edwards as the representative, called the director. Tammy Devlin as an alternate director. John Thunheim as the alternate director as well. Brian Bishop as the alternate director, and Brian Anderson as the alternate director and safety officer. Tammy is here to additional perspective.
I didn't know if you had any questions. This is just to run the business of the risk pool. So Gary goes to the meetings, myself, John Thunheim goes on occasion. And so it helps if we have alternate directors to make sure that the business of the pool is done and moving forward.
Thank you. Questions?
Well, it's going to be a good place to be. I guess no questions.
No questions, Commissioner Munster? Okay. You're on the hook, I guess.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, item C is Public Health and Social Services, Department of Ecology, Water Quality Combined Financial Assistance Agreement for Black Lake Pollution Identification and Correction Project.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Chair. I will recommend moving this item as a department item, not as a consent agenda due to the dollar amount. And we'll revise the motion to include the amount itself. So the county was awarded $250,000 grant by the Department of Ecology to conduct the Black Lake Pollution Identification and Correction project. The total cost for the project is $418,792.
How much again?
$418,792. Ecology will be contributing again $250,000, and the remainder will be provided by Foundational Public Health, which is 25% match grant of $83,000, and additional funds. So everything will be provided in terms of additional funds from Foundational Public Health to cover the $418,792. The project builds, as you may know, in the previous work conducted by the Black Lake Special District. And as you may recall, the board was diligent in asking the staff to take the necessary steps based on the public testimony you receive in a couple of occasions. This is the next steps in the direction of the board. And we're so very grateful that we receive this $250,000 grant from the Department of Ecology. And this project stays to be completed by June 30, 2025. And we will keep the board appraised as to the progress of the findings related to this project. I don't see Stuart Woodford here, but David may be covering if you have any questions. And again, this will be another department item, and we'll add the total cost of the contract on the action.
Thank you. David, anything you would like to add?
No, the county manager summed it up well.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Who made application for this money from the Department of Ecology?
We did.
Do we have, no, I think this is great, but do we have the ability that we can ask for this type of analysis for other lakes in Thurston County?
I believe that is an opportunity in the future to ask for additional grants for other lakes. Is that correct, David? Without putting you in the spot.
I'll confirm for you, Commissioner Edwards, but I believe that we could go back to Department of Ecology and seek similar grants for this.
I would guess my question would be, why wouldn't we want to do this to try and do a better job in all the lakes? We've got communities that have created lake management districts, and I would hope that doesn't negate their ability to receive assistance to continue to try to do a better job. But I don't know where to proceed on that. I've not heard of this before, so.
Yeah, we can certainly explore that, Commissioner. And I think this is specifically direction by the board, so you may recall.
Okay.
On the Black Lake.
Questions?
Is this, is the scope of this project the I don't know what you want to call it, the findings that were made about a particular creek that was causing a water quality issue, and it was determined by outside consultants to be septic systems that were failing? Is it specifically that, or is it broader than that, looking at other pollution identification at Black Lake?
No, you're right on point. The scope of work is to have about 500 contacts requesting sanitary survey related to their septic use. And we also making a survey of the 400 in-ground sanitary within the project area, increase awareness of the homeowners of the on-site sewer system, financial assistance, and corrections of resource of E. coli, bacteria, and phosphorus related to the septic system. So you recalling this absolutely correct. It's mainly related to the septic systems. And that was the feedback that you received from, I believe, the president of one of the members of the Black Lake Special District. And they used some of their own money to do a high-level assessment. And the result of that was that some of the septic systems were perhaps the contributors to some of the issues on Black Lake. So this is follow-up to that. Did I answer your question, sir?
Any additional questions? My questions got asked on this, but so this will be moved to a department item and then
Just to make sure that it is a good presentation next week, yeah.
Moving on to department items, 4A from the auditor's office, approval of the voucher list for the week of February 27th, 2023.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This is for your consideration approving the voucher list for the week of February 27, 2023 for a combined amount of $4,144,396.04. Similar to the item on this afternoon, there is some small expenditures related to the atrium tenant improvements. And as I stated earlier today, those expenditures are diminishing in value, and hopefully we'll get into an expenditures related to the atrium on an ongoing basis, which mainly will be the lease of the building as well as the lease of the parking lots.
Thank you.
You said lease of the building and the parking lot. I thought that it was a total package.
We need to separate those two payments.
Okay.
Okay. Talking about parking here, is there something being worked on the parking plan for this building and kind of the use of that other parking lot?
For this building, the parking plan is complete and has been distributed.
So is there going to be signage posted kind of on?
As soon as the weather is better, we're gonna paint the spaces and,
Okay.
yeah,
A little more intuitive than what it is right now. You're absolutely correct.
but we gotta get better weather to be able to do that.
I'm just wondering, I think right now there's still confusion and, you know, Okay.
Yeah, and you're right, because even the numbers that we assigned are kind of fading, and it was expected to be fading because of the weather. And when we painted those also, it's raining.
Yeah. That's part of the plan, but we need to wait for better weather.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to Commissioners, item 6A, 2023 lodging tax award recommendations.
I think you have a 5A, Madam Chair.
Oh, my bad.
Sorry.
5A, Central Services, contract award for public health and social services water lab relocation, project number 25630. Tony, I wanted to skip you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is, again, the last step of moving all the tenants out of Building 1 of the courthouse campus. So you know, the only remaining function on Building 1 is the water lab. And so the water lab is going to be relocated at the Lilly campus, at the Lilly building, where the portions of the public health is still in presence in there. So in March 6, 2023, we received 7 bids, and the lower bid that meets all the minimum requirements is for Christensen Inc., general contractor, for the amount of $649,000. I will stop there and give Tony the opportunity to highlight other items on this project, since he's here.
County manager explained it really well. We were a little nervous on how many bids we were going to get and what they came in at, and all but one came in under the AE's lowest estimate, so we were very, very pleased with that. So.
Thank you. Any questions?
And I believe this is going in a building over on Lilly that we own, right?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Russell? Okay, thank you. Okay, I see the sheriff has jumped on. And so I'll go ahead and pause this agenda for March 21st. And then we'll move on to the public safety measure discussion, just to be respectful of his time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is a follow-up to the planning session that you had a couple of weeks ago, where we provided many options that is available to the board with to additional revenue. One of the key elements that you discussed at that time was a public safety measure. Attached to your documents we provided to you, what this public safety measure could do in terms of revenue. And the county has the option to go to 1/10 of 1%, 2/10 of 1%, and 3/10 of 1%. We highlighted in the document that 2/10 of 1%.
Sheriff, can you hear us all right?
I can, yep.
Perfect, thank you.
So we highlighted 2/10 of 1%, and where the overall revenue will be in the county, across the county, $14,274,000. There is a requirement that we need to share this 40% of those revenues with the incorporated cities. And the result of that is we will distribute the 40%, which is $5,710,000. And you have a breakdown as to how that distribution will be on your attachment. And the amount for the county will be $8,564,000. So the result of that conversation was that perhaps it was somewhat of an energy by the board. I'll just leave it like that. They continued to this conversation, and you asked me to bring the county sheriff and as part of this conversation for you to hear his perspective related to this particular option, if that is the next step. So the next step, I will not be asking you to approve this because that will take some time. But I will ask you for you to direct me to bring you the next steps in the process for a formal consideration here in the next couple of months. So I'm not asking you to approve this today. So I'm just asking for you to give me the direction to take the next steps and maybe bring proposed ordinance for you to consider. And that's really what this conversation is all about.
Thank you. Before I jump to Sheriff Sanders, are there any questions or comments from the board?
No, I want to hear what the sheriff's got to say.
Commissioner Munson? Okay, Sheriff Sanders?
Good morning, and excuse my attire. We are in beautiful Billings, Montana on a road trip. But yeah, you know, this public safety tax, I know it's been a topic of conversation for some time. But to me, I don't see another choice at this point. When we run the calculations, Thurston County Sheriff's Office ranks near dead last when it comes to staffing and those types of things. And I don't think that it's not going to get any better by the sheriff coming to the Board of County Commissioners every 2 years and asking for 2 deputy positions. That's kind of been the status quo, and we're never going to get where we really should be by taking that approach. So it's my understanding that most of the counties in this state have exercised public safety tax. I think that with the perception of crime that's going on right now and the opportunity and the need, I think everything has kind of aligned itself to give us the best shot at having a successful campaign for public safety tax. And, you know, when you have a sheriff's office that is this understaffed, with 35 deputies serving 150,000 unincorporated citizens, the least we can do, I think, is swing for a home run and try to hit it out of the park. Because if we strike out, then we're still right where we are. So that's kind of my perspective. My only caveat to this is that I like voter initiative based tax proposals, and if it's something that I'm going to go out and campaign for, then everything that we're going to do is going to be basically we're going to have that all worked out ahead of time. I'm not going to go to the voters and ask them to pass a tax, and when they ask me what it's for, not be able to tell them, you know, specifically what it is. So my plan is that if we're all going to go forward on this, that as a sheriff's office, we'll come together with that monetary allotment and figure out exactly where the resources, like what it's going to pay for, and how many deputies, for instance, it's going to pay for, how many support staff, that kind of thing. So.
Thank you. Questions, comments from, go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I guess my concern as we move forward with this is that we have some type of a no supplanting clause so that the public knows that this money is going to create new positions, and what the breakdown would be on sharing this with who, whether it's going to entail certain members of the law and justice community, jail deputies, that kind of thing. So that's my concern as we develop a plan, that we've got something in place that we can sell to the public and assure them that that's what we're going to do with the money if they vote for it.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, and right on point. We can certainly build a proposed ballot measure. They put some constraints as to how this revenue should be allocated. And we can certainly put a clause of no supplanting, because you're absolutely right. I mean, if this is something that we ask to the voters to help us to grow, we cannot go back and supplant in what we already have invested in the sheriff's office. The initial thought behind this is there's going to be 3 elements. It will be obviously law enforcement, as Sheriff Sanders stated. They perhaps up to 75%, and it's just for talking purposes. And they remitted 25% up to 25% between prosecution and public defense. And that will probably be how limited this initiative could be. But certainly that is something the board needs to explore down the road in coordination with the Sheriff Sanders, the Sheriff's Office, and see how this could be an option.
Commissioner Munson, any questions, comments?
So one of the things I I'm in agreement with what the sheriff and Commissioner Edwards said, but I do, an additional element for me is to make sure that we work with the cities and I would want all or almost all of those jurisdictions to support what we're doing, because it's going to be done across the jurisdictions. And I guess my question is, if the county decided on something like what the county manager just proposed, would that flow to the cities as well? Like, would they be limited to the 75% law enforcement, 25% prosecutor? I mean, that they don't even have public defense. So I mean, how does that work for their portion of the money? Are they, or can we separate that out and say the county's portion will be used for this? And how is that going to?
All good questions. And my initial conversation with the city managers is along the same lines. And we need to do some additional exploration. Meaning if the ballot measure is on the context and the distribution to the cities carries the same requirements, we have to explore if that is the case. If so, then how we can probably develop a ballot language that excludes that contribution to the cities to do what I believe they perceive to be adequate. So that is a good question. I don't have an answer for you today on that. That is something that we need to explore as we move forward on the next steps.
Okay, and then, of course, there's the other question of, I think this supports what the sheriff said, but it's like, if we're gonna do this, I wanna make sure that it's adequate to really address, like, I don't wanna do this and then we're still like 20, we're still a 38th or 39th in the state in sheriff's office staffing. Like, I want it to be, I want the magnitude to match the solution to the problem, such as it is. I mean, obviously the solution is a loaded term, but I mean, I want us to feel like we've really solved a problem to a point, rather than just chipping away at. So I guess taking these numbers and then taking it to the next step. Okay, how many sheriff deputies does Sheriff Sanders think we need to have to get into the middle of the pack? And how much is that going to, like, back it up so that we can see how much revenue is really need to be generated in order to get that problem solved?
Absolutely on point. And that was probably the suggestion of the 2/10, 1%, because that really is somewhat of a mid-ground on the options the board has. And I cannot answer the question whether that will bring to a number one across the state. But certainly I think it's going to be a good contribution. Because just thinking on those terms, if there is the 75% of this particular revenue, if approved by the voters, goes to law enforcement, the sheriff's office, that is probably $6 million a year. That can, and it's not just one time, it's continuing. So that is probably a good investment for new deputies.
It is, but I would need the sheriff, and Sheriff and I have talked about this, like, it's not just, you can't just, like, they need support staff as well. Like, you can't just max it out on all of these deputies and they don't have the surrounding.
Just to give you an example, you know that just about a new sheriff deputy with all the equipment, the first investment, it's just about $240,000 with the vehicle. After that, the vehicle is not part of that. And
$200,000 a year.
so if you have 200,000, and then the admin support, that is something that perhaps myself and the sheriff need to work to bring in those
what's the ratio of support needed to support, like, 8 new deputies, for example, or whatever that ratio is, just so we can crunch the numbers.
Well, it's not necessarily tied to the deputy per se. I would say that support services is more tied to the population. Right, because what you're talking about is support services do things like enter warrants, they check warrants, they do firearms, they do records requests. And so that to me has more to do with the population, less to do with how many deputy sheriffs there are necessarily. One thing I can say, it's like my strategy, we're coming up into like our budget and whatnot, but like, we're not asking for any deputy sheriffs. Now, part of that is because we're also kind of hoping that the public safety tax pass and actually address that issue. But outside of the public safety tax, that's kind of where the sheriff's office is focusing more of its request for support services. We've already done it once with our systems administrator, converting that position. And coming up in this biennial budget, we're going to ask for a civilian evidence tag and other support services positions. Positions that we can definitively come to the board and say, look at what this civilian position is going to do for us, as opposed to the generic, we need more deputies. We always need more deputies. So I think there's a little bit of a strategy difference there, but the support services one is tricky because I truly think it's more tied to population than necessarily the deputy sheriff. I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe with records you could tie that somehow with more deputies writing more reports. But with the amount of deputies, if you consider the fact that a deputy is maybe $250,000, okay, so $6 million in revenue maybe. So let's say this buys 10 to 15 deputies, then maybe one support services, one more person in records management, probably what you're looking at to support that. You wouldn't need another reports officer. You wouldn't need another firearms. Those are tied to population.
Supervision
So the
stuff.
whole structure.
So
that's something we'll need to work
we need
on
to work,
exactly what.
So, and all good questions, and I think it will require maybe for the sheriff, myself, and Robin to brainstorm with his staff as to how this could be, and what is it the voters, if they approve, what they buy in terms of sheriff deputies.
And so for me, the 25% for prosecutor and public defense, I'm not there. Cutting that 25%.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to make that decision. This is just.
Well, I understand, but I'm kind of I'm not there, and the reason for that is, for me, it opens the door to the courts, to the clerks. Why are we not funding them as well? And so I just want us to be, when we're pulling up those numbers, we've already talked about just kind of the whole restructure that's going to have to take place. To just be very conscious of that. And so when we're given kind of these figures on how much it would cost to staff so many new deputies and so many new support staff, I kind of want us to have that whole holistic amount there. And then if, then the conversation arises that a certain section will be to the prosecutor of public defense, and that I think at that time the board needs to have more discussion, but as it sits right now, I'm not there.
You would not want to have.
Well, the only other thing that I'll comment on is that to pass this is going to require a campaign, right? We're going to have to go out there. I think Commissioner Mincer is right. We're going to have to get the cities on board.
Sheriff, I don't think we need to get into campaign strategy in this conversation at this point. I think we need to probably walk a fine line on that. Maybe just talking about the concept is good. I don't think we need to.
Sorry, I wasn't talking about campaign strategy. All I was going to say is that when you put this on the ballot, what people are going to want to see is how many deputy positions it creates. I don't think people are going to really care that a support service that's for us maybe. But as far as getting this information out to the public, they're going to want to see how many deputy sheriff positions it creates.
He's making reference to a comment I made about if you have different types of services being funded, you broaden potentially the interest in the community to support it, rather than it just being all about police. Because if you make it all about police, there's a certain segment of the voters that may not want to do that. If you broaden it to the court system, public defense, stuff like that, you get other people's interests who aren't so much about increasing the police force.
But then it just dwindles down as well, the pot, and that's my concern. I mean, the main reason we're doing this is for something very specific, and so I would, like Roberto said, we still have work to do. I would like to see the numbers, honestly, because while I understand that strategy, for me, it leaves us open to other offices and courts in our criminal justice system to come back and be like, well, why are we included in this? And then it just kind of dwindles out the pot some more. So you know, I'm just putting out my concerns right up from the very start and kind of just laying it out there.
More to come, Commissioners.
More to come, I think is the answer. A lot
Okay.
of strategy.
Thank you, Sheriff, and have a safe drive.
Thank you so much. Have a good one, guys.
It is 10:27. I haven't gotten a message yet, so we'll continue and we'll jump back to the Board of County Commissioners agenda. And we left off.
We left on the lodging sales tax.
So moving to 6A, 2023 lodging tax award recommendations.
Yeah, for your consideration is for you to award the lodging tax grants. Jenica is here to walk you a little bit about the process. The county received 15 applications. The total 200,000. The allowable budget is 100,000. So the committee has gone through the process of making recommendations to the board. All 15 will be awarded a portion of the request. No, 14, sorry. Will be a portion of the request, and because I believe each of those applications have been valuable for the community. So Jenica's here to walk you through those.
Yeah,
Amir, introduce yourself.
Jenica Machado, Economic Development Manager. No additional information on that high-level overview, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Is there, we usually get a form with who
Oh,
brought
my
it.
apologies. I'll give you a copy of the applications, maybe for the members of the public. I can probably give you a brief rundown of the proposals, and I'll give you a copy since this item is going to be for your consideration next week. The proposal for the hands-on Children's Museum, their request was $17,500. The recommendation is to award $10,000. The Yelm Chamber of Commerce, the request was $10,000. The recommendation is $5,000. The Yelm Chamber of Commerce. I'll give you a copy of this. My apologies. The Team Tomorrow LLC, the request for $25,000. The award is $10,000. The Olympia Downtown Alliance, the request $30,000. The recommendation is $10,000. The Olympia Flight Museum, the request is $7,500. The recommendation was $7,500. The Rochester Citizens Group, their request was $7,000. The recommendation is $3,500. The Thurston County Fairgrounds Events, the request was $30,000. The recommendation is $25,000. The Washington Center for Performing Arts, the request was $15,000. The recommendation is $3,000. The Tenino Youth at Heart, the request was $5,000. The recommendation is $1,000. The Washington State University Extension, their request was $1,867. The recommendation is $1,500. The Tenino Area Chambers of Commerce, their request was $6,000. The recommendation is $3,000. The City of Tenino is request is $10,000. The recommendation is $3,000. The South Thurston County Historical Society, thank you. The request was $9,360. The recommendation is $0, no awards. That's the one is not receiving. And that is the South Thurston County Historical Society. And the next is the South Sound Maritime Heritage Association. The request was $10,000. The recommendation is $10,000. And last but not least is the Washington State Senior Games. The request for $7,500 and the award recommendation is $7,500. That amounts to $100,000. And I will give you copies of this. I apologize for that.
The one, I think, I'm gonna do this off memory.
You remember, yeah.
A lot of discussion went into this whole thing. And the one for Tenino, that there was a wage component that did not seem to meet the criteria of putting heads in beds, I guess the best way that I can put it.
Oh, the Depot Museum.
So I believe that's why there was a $0 award. But the rest of them, we did what we could do with a lot of discussion. That'll be my committee report.
You made everybody happy, Commissioner?
No. No, we did not.
Dang it.
We had a lot of requests this year.
Yeah.
Double.
And you double the amount of this year because you had submitted fund balance. So the community responded.
Yeah, I think the majority of this money is coming in due to Airbnb, I think is what you call it, isn't it? Isn't that bringing in the most of the money that we're dealing with? And that seems to be a growing industry.
That appears to be the reason that we're collecting so much now compared to the past.
For the unincorporated.
Unincorporated only
Only.
is where this revenue comes from.
So there's another process that all the cities have for
Yes,
the same thing?
each jurisdiction has to have one of these LTAC.
So we don't know who got what for all the different cities?
Who they awarded funds to.
Or like which one of our recipients also got money?
Some did, we know.
Yeah, we know some of them have received funds from like City of Lacey or Olympia, but if you're interested, I could, get a list from the different jurisdictions, but
Well, since nobody really got their full amount, it's probably not as critical, but if we were fully funding requests, but I mean, they might be splitting up. Like, they might be asking for 100% of what they need from Thurston and then also Olympia, or they might need this much and there's limits, so they ask for 25% from different places. I mean, you just don't know, or I don't know looking at the.
right. And the application does ask if it's not fully awarded what their contingency plan is, so the LTAC committee was able to look through that information as part of their decision.
So there was only two that we fully funded, and that was the Olympic Air Show and the Washington State Senior Games at $7,500. Those were the only two that we fully funded. After that, everyone else. Okay, any questions or?
And if you have any questions during the week, let us know. We'll revisit this item again as you know, next week.
Okay, so we'll review the list of the projects and we'll come back next week. Thank you, Jenica. Moving on to community planning and economic development. Final action for development code docket item A-18, agricultural activities.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a follow-up to the public hearing you held on February 28, 2023, related to the development code docket item 818, the agricultural activities critical areas. And you have a follow-up conversation. I believe Commissioner Edwards had some questions. Those questions were addressed, I believe, by staff. And this is the last step in the process for you to consider final approval.
Thank you. Any questions on this item? Commissioner Edwards, Commissioner Menzer? Okay, thank you. No questions for me. Moving on to item B, Thurston County permitting fee study competitive bidding waiver.
So this has been a long process in a way. As you may recall, we went out for a request for proposals back in September 16, 2022, where we needed to secure the services of a consultant to go through a comprehensive assessment of all the fees that we have related to permitting process that includes community planning, economic development, public works, as well as public health. It intends to have a comprehensive assessment of those fees. lo and behold, we received no proposals as a result of request for proposal, zero, none. So then will put us in the position to see what else that we need to do. So we reach out to the firm, which is the FCS Group, who provided the fee study in the past. And we reach out to them to see that we're interested in revamping and reassessing the fee study.
Is that the one who did the traffic fee study?
I believe so. So they were now they have enough staff to tackle this project, and that is the recommendation that we have for you today, is for you to waive the competitive bidding requirements in accordance to the procurement policy. This professional services, which is online to that waiving action, and this is for up to $196,495. And the reason that I said up to is because it's fee for service. It's based on the hourly rate that we have negotiated with this vendor, but it will not exceed the $196,495. I'm particularly excited to bring this item before you, commissioners. It has been a long haul and something that we need to go ahead and start working right away. Jeremy?
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, Jeremy Davis, Thurston County Community Planning and Economic Development. Thanks for considering this. It has been a long road, and we've worked in conjunction with the Public Works Department and Public Health and Social Services on both the RFP and review of the draft contract before you today. If you'll recall, back in September, when I originally requested board approval of the RFP, we estimated the resulting contract would be between $150,000 and $200,000, and this one's coming in right at $196,000 and some change. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have on this.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
So we've only received one bid, is that what I'm hearing?
No, on the request for proposals, we received zero.
Zero bids.
The result of not receiving any proposals.
And then how did we end up with this bid?
Yeah, we reached out to the vendor who provided the fee study in the past.
Yes, Commissioner Edwards, FCS Group performed Thurston County's fee study back in 2007. And if you recall, they also did our cost of comparison survey this last year. So they were already somewhat familiar with Thurston County's land use permitting fees and some of our processes. And we were familiar with them from their recent work with Public Works. So we reached out to them to see if they would entertain contracting with us for our our permitting fee study.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, and I was going to say, I also went ahead and reached out to other consulting groups who I thought may be interested in performing the fee study for us, and none of them currently do those services, do that line of work. One of them recently actually stopped doing that line of work. So we did do a lot of groundwork to reach out to other consultants to find out who may be interested in performing this work for Thurston County, and we came up short on that.
So then we went to these folks and said, well, would you do it? And they said, well, okay, we'll do it. And it's a fee for service. So it kind of depends on the amount of time it takes them, is that?
They provided an estimate as to how much it will take. So the reimbursement, it will be not on the total amount of the contract. The reimbursement will be based on the hours they perform their work.
I mean, I'm wondering about that amount of money to compare what we're doing to what other counties are doing, I guess, is.
Not that simple. The fee study's not that simple.
It's just not that simple,
No.
okay.
Because the scope of work of other jurisdictions of fee studies could be totally different than what we're looking for.
Because some of them do general funds, some of them don't.
And it's different context as to how they process the fee. They may not include public works, they may include other fees. So I don't think it will be fruitful to compare apples with oranges with other counties because the scope of work may be different.
What the consultant will do is look at the body of work that Thurston does and make an assessment of how much fee we would need to charge for each of the types of services. So it's a complicated study.
I guess I'm not sure that what we're doing altogether is the right thing to do. I mean, we've heard about go get one more green rock, or, you know, when we're trying to consolidate everything at one point. That's still not happened yet to where we've solved that problem. So our own staff oftentimes creates this extended period of time and workload that continues to drag out. And so I don't know if we do an analysis of it, maybe the first thing we ought to do is see if what we're doing makes sense. And when I say that, the green rock thing, I'm just going to refer to that because I think I've heard of it being utilized in here as an example, so that when the applicant comes in, they know exactly what they need to supply, and then they're going to get this product X back from the county. I wonder if we aren't getting ahead of ourselves, and maybe we should look at adjusting our process first before we take a look at the fee schedule, because I think we're charging for a bunch of wasted time. So that's my own perspective on it. You kind of see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, may I answer that? I think you're right on point, but perhaps it's two different parallel tracks that we see here. One is process improvement that you stated, and the other one is the fee for a specific type of a permit. And that's what probably the study does, is how much we charge for any specific permit in a particular action any citizen is requested from the county. It's two different tracks. And that's what even I believe the board has requested this fee study to be performed, because on the same time, I believe the members of the board have said perhaps we're charging way too much on a specific application for a specific request of a permit. And that's what is really trying to do this, be responsive to what the board provided direction in the past. So we'll continue to go through the process improvements you stated, but also I believe in tandem, we need to assess whether the current fees are adequate. And at the end is whether how we can be comparing the fees that we have right now here in Thurston County with other counties in the surroundings as part of the process. And some other counties may use general fund as a part of subsidy of the fees. And that is also part of the fee study as to what the options that we would need to provide to the board, leading to perhaps the budget decisions that you may need to make during the biennium this fall. So it's all in tandem, but I don't think it's one of the same.
If I might add, County Manager Chavez, the fee study is also looking at all three departments' hourly rates. And the hours that the staff spend on applications, if they're reduced through a better public process, then that means our costs will go down and the charge will go down with that, but we'll still have the same hourly rate that we're setting to ensure that we're covering our labor and technology costs and other costs associated with running our department and that unit of our department. Thank you.
I was just going to, the board may recall during the budget process, you invested $1.7 million into this, the permit fund, the land use and permit fund, due to dwindling revenues. And I think having this fee study is going to be imperative as you look at the future of that fund. because the fund has problems. One more piece of the puzzle.
It'll be, yeah. I don't really have any comments. I understand the different comments being made. Commissioner Edwards, anything else?
I guess to follow up on what you're saying, I've never been able to figure out yet, and I can use a couple of individual examples, and one of them is we're 4 years into it. It's an individual house on an individual property in amongst other houses. And that person has been trying to build a house for his mother for 4 years now. He's finally got the house built, but he doesn't have the occupancy permit done because there's these constant delays that have been thrown in. Now, we have to recognize we've also got a COVID situation that went on for about 3 years there. So I don't know that it's a real good example, but I've got other ones that they seem like the delays never stop coming. And everywhere else except government, time is money. Whether your delay costs you more interest, if you're doing financing, or your product costs more. And so I'm just not there yet on the fact that we're getting it right. And although, like Jeremy is saying, there's going to be some review on that, is that going to come with a solution with this study as well, that, well, we're going to eliminate this delay and this delay and this delay? I don't know. Are we hearing that that's going to take place?
Give us the opportunity to bring those answers to those questions, Commissioner. And this is, again, another piece within the whole puzzle. And this is, with all the respect, this is not new. We have been discussing about this fee study for the last couple of years, and the board has been supportive of moving forward on this. So you're asking excellent questions, and hopefully this will give the board a glimpse as to how we need to move forward.
I would also add that with the implementation of the new permit system, the replacement of Amanda, that very thing, process improvement, is critical to implementing a new system. So I know that the department is working on that as they design the system that's in process.
It's not there yet, though, right? We don't have it implemented yet?
It is in process, is my understanding. And one of the very first things you do is workflow. You do an analysis of your workflow so that you set the system up right. And I know that Josh has been working with his team for quite some time.
Josh is behind you.
Do we have an estimated time that system's gonna be in place?
I don't know that yet.
Josh, do you have, come on.
You won't be seen, Josh, so announce your presence, please.
I am Joshua Cummings, the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. We do have a timeline on those, but before I begin on that timeline, I'd just like to provide my concurrence. The county manager's perspective on all of these things working in tandem is exactly appropriate. The assistant county manager's perspective on making sure that we have this information for the board as you go into the budget season is exactly the intent. And I would say that in terms of the timeline for Excella, the stand-up of our new permitting program, we're engaged in the process mapping currently, and the goal is for implementation in early 2024, first quarter of 2024. But that same process mapping is exactly the information that we need to provide the fee study contractor as well. So we know that we have issues to fix. We're not as good as we're going to be, but we are better than we were. and recognizing that those pieces need to all move together. And this is the year for us to provide the information, get the information so the board can make those big decisions. But without this information on the budget, it's going to be us saying things without background information from a hired contractor consultant. And this is in honor of what the board has been requesting for multiple years. And now we're at that place where we need to go relatively quickly to get you that information as you prepare for your budget process in the coming year.
We did budget for the study itself, right? That's taken care of.
And it's coming from CPED, Public Health, and Public Works. Each of those are contributing to this effort and is included in the budget, so.
And it is a lot, but it's a long time coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Mejia had to step out and she asked that we take our recess since we're behind on that. It's, we'll reconvene at 11:05 and probably prepare to go well past noon today.
Past noon, yeah.
But we're in recess till 11:05. Okay, we're back. It's 11:13. We're picking up with item 8A on our agenda for next Tuesday's board meeting, March 21st. It's a public health and social service item, amendment number 12 to Washington State Department of Health consolidated contract.
Thank you, Commissioner. Back in January 2022, you approved the overall contract, what we call is the CONCON, the consolidated contract with the the State Department of Health. And that set the stage to continue to receive funding throughout the years. You have approved 11 amendments. They fund many different aspects, including the foundational public health within the contract. So every so often, there's additional money, additional requirements that we need to amend the contract. So this particular item is amendment number 12. They will add $139,250 to the contract. The result of that will be a total of $12,548,833 the county has received. This particular amendment includes a scope of work that continues to support COVID vaccinations as well as the response. Also includes the injury and violence prevention overdose data, and also provides activities related to the drinking water group A. So if you have any questions, I believe David is here to answer your questions about my hand.
Questions on it? No, we need it. Go to item 9, Public Works. Public Works Board construction loan for Country Club Road Northwest at Green Cove Creek culvert replacement.
Thank you, Commissioner. This is a part of the financial strategy that Public Works provided to the board as to how we are going to fund the Country Club along Green Cove culvert replacement. So you may recall that has an estimated cost of just about $9.1 million. And the financial strategy that we provided to the board at that time was the county road fund will fund just about $1.8 million. The REIT 2, the board approved is 2.6 or so. The stormwater utility also contributes $150,000, and the remainder as part of the strategy was to secure a Public Works Trust Fund of $4.5 million. So we applied for this construction loan through the Public Works Trust Fund, and we were very fortunate to be really number one within all the applications. It's the fourth highest out of the 60 applications the State Public Works Trust Fund received. And this action is for you to get into an agreement with the state for us to receive the construction grants when the time comes. I believe construction is scheduled for next year, 2024. Now there is a you had recent last week conversations related to ARPA funds. If there is any remainder of ARPA funds, could be supplementing this particular project. I believe there may be a possibility when the time comes to do that. So going through this process, I believe, and something that Karen could clarify this question for me, just because you're committed to this particular agreement, you're not committed to utilize all the funds out of this loan. When the time comes, depending on where we are in the ARPA funds, we may utilize the 4.5 loan, or we may not utilize the entirety or none, depending on how the board would like to see on the expenditure rates of the ARPA funds. So this particular loan carries an interest rate of 1.39%, a very low interest rate, and the payout of the loan is scheduled to come out of the road fund, not the general fund. So that is the context of this item. Karen is here to answer any questions or additional perspectives.
I would add that this loan will be reviewed by the Finance Committee, the County Finance Committee, tomorrow morning at 10:30. And next week, when you bring it up we will also have the recommendation of the finance committee.
And I can just answer, Romero, your question, which is correct. Accepting this loan does not obligate us to take all 4.5 million of it. We can also repay it, accelerate the payments, or just take parts of it. We will still, as Public Works, be applying for grants. Our strategy or preferred approach would be obviously to use grant funding for this project over a loan, but this is a very favorable loan with lots of flexibility, and in fact, an option for a reduced interest rate if we are able to complete our project within a shorter time frame than the loan parameters. We can have up to 1/4 or 1/2% reduction in the interest rate. So this loan program is specifically designed for local governments to address their infrastructure needs, and so they're very favorable loan provisions.
Go ahead.
So with the winning or whatever you call it, the acquisition of this loan, approval, whatever, that gets us to the like one way or the other, we're gonna get to the finish line because the other sources are there.
Yeah.
And if we're able to backfill ARPA money instead of road fund, great, but either way, we can get the project done.
Absolutely, and that was the last step really in the financial plan, is to secure this grant. So at this point, it's somewhat like a pre-approved for a loan, right? Yeah. You get pre-approved, we have been pre-approved, we accept the conditions by your action next week, and then we'll see. But at least we have a green light to meet the intent of having this project under construction by next year, 2024.
It seems like since the alternative, well, of course, we were just talking, but if one of the proposals for, any leftover ARP funds is to backfill our chip seal and road, then it's kind of 6 to 1, half a dozen the other, right? If we take money from the road fund for this, or we don't, and do the road, it's like, keep it as simple as possible would be my suggestion, but that's good that we have that flexibility potentially, because the one thing we were worried about on this one was the timing, right? Like, can you get it obligated, or sounds like we probably can, but you can always resurface your roads. And
the way that you stated, I think the conversation last week related to the ARPA funds, at least from the staff point of view, we'll make sure that we bring recommendations to the board that the county does not leave any dollar on the table related to ARPA funds, and that continues to be the objective.
So this is really good news, I would think.
It's very good news, and it really just takes the last step in making sure we have a robust financial plan to deliver this project. Because just take you back last year, in the summer, we were struggling as a county, as a department, as to how we're going to be building a financial strategy to meet the requirements of replacing this culvert. So here we are. Kudos to Public Works.
Did we get any salmon recovery money to help on this project at all?
I think we applied, but we have not received any response on the grant applications.
Correct.
When this project is done, there's not gonna be a culvert there, there's gonna be a bridge. And so, and what is it? The bridge is gonna be 75 feet high or something?
Well, I don't know the details.
No, but I mean, it's not just a little project, it's a great big
project. You replace I think it's a 46-inch culvert.
It must be, 100 feet long or something that we're replacing?
I think the issue is how deep the culvert is.
Yeah, it's down a long ways.
And then the span.
Yeah, but the bottom of the dam, if you will, is like 100 feet wide or something.
Yeah, it's significant, because it requires a lot of.
Can we get any priority on things like salmon money? Because isn't it gonna help? Can't we say it's a salmon creek too?
Well, it's absolutely, it's a fish barrier replacement, absolutely.
I don't understand why we can't get some money from them as well.
Well, we have applied, which I have not received a response.
Okay, good enough, I don't have.
We certainly are working on any other grant opportunities to help fund this project. So this is good news and a backstop, but pending we've received some other funding, this is part of our current plan.
Thank you. And moving on to item 9B, Long Lake Algae Control Contract Award 2023 through 2026.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In February 16, 2023, this year, we received just one proposal from the company who specializes in aquatic algae management to conduct the needed work along Long Lake. The result of that process is for you to consider awarding the contract to Aqua Technex LLC of Bellingham, Washington, for an amount not to exceed $850,000 to provide to deliver the activities related to the Long Lake Management LMD, the Lake Management District. This is included under budget, and this is just very timely for you to consider approval as the time to do these activities are coming up on us. Tim?
Good morning, Commissioners. I would just add to that summary that this is a one-year contract with the option for 3 one-year renewals. So the $850,000 is for a period of 4 years. And with that, I would answer any questions you may have.
Tim, I heard from one of the Long Lake steering committee members that there's been a hire for Paula's position. Could you give us an update on that? Because I hadn't heard that. I hadn't heard that before.
Absolutely. Great news. We've hired Cole Webster as the new aquatic resource specialist. Cole began with the county on February 16th and is full on in the onboarding process. He's been to steering committee meetings for both Long Lake and Lake Lawrence now, and is more than dipping his toes into the work plan and getting involved in that. So sometime soon, I will get Cole in front of the board and introduce him properly.
I thought we had a briefing on it.
We have one tomorrow that will elaborate in terms of the resources and the staffing levels related to the LM. This is tomorrow. 9 in the morning. So more to come on that.
Yeah, I have a Healthy Lakes program staffing briefing.
Yes.
If you really want to give him, get his feet wet on board and, give him some admin rules to draft. Just kidding. We don't want to lose him.
I'll reserve comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Edwards, I apologize. Okay, no questions. Has this contract been reviewed and approved by the steering committee, and they gave thumbs up on this?
The RFP and the work that we are doing to get this in place has been discussed thoroughly with Long Lake. I would add that prior to us issuing any work orders under this contract, that staff would be meeting both with steering committee representatives and the contractor to make sure that everybody is on the same page before we issue any work orders.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on, that will conclude our department items, and we have some sending items. We do have a public hearing at 3:30, which is from Public Health and Social Services, a public hearing for Housing and Urban Development Home ARP Plan and Amendment Program Year 2021 HUD Annual Action Plan.
Yeah, you will be receiving public testimony, and what you just stated, Madam Chair. And at that point, you will have for your consideration two actions. Is one to close the public hearing, and depending on the testimony that you might receive, you may consider approving and accept the action.
Okay, any questions on this item? Commissioner Evans? And then, I guess I just would have one question for David, would be if we received public comment on this item. Any written?
I don't think so. I touched base with Tom. I don't think we have received any written testimony.
This usually isn't a very exciting meeting usually.
Yes, yeah, I think it takes a little longer for the chair to go through the introductions.
Than it does for the, okay.
But you never know.
And then at 4 p.m., we have the distinct pleasure of having a TBD meeting. So next is a review of the TBD draft agenda for a meeting of March 21st, 2023. Am I still the chair of that one?
The president.
Or the president, okay. Okay, Matt.
Hey.
Let's do this one. 4 p.m., we'll call the meeting to order. Approval of the March 21st, 2023 agenda. And next is the approval of the meeting minutes from June 21st, 2022. Next, at 4:05, there will be an opportunity for the public to address the board. And we'll go to department items. We have 2 items. Item 3A is ratify the assignment of the Thurston County Transportation Benefit District officers for 2023.
Okay, don't be shy, Matt.
Oh, that's about all it is we're just ratifying the officers. Like Commissioner Edwards said previously, I think we're following up one exciting meeting with another. So there's not much more to add to that.
So as it would be, this one's president? President would be me, vice president would be Commissioner Menser, and
Commissioner Edwards.
Commissioner Edwards would be a board member? Okay.
Not saying that.
What was the assignment? I can't remember.
So in 2022, this past year, and it's my understanding that we're going to keep the remaining roles. Commissioner Mejia was president, Commissioner Edwards was vice president, and Commissioner Mesmer was board member.
Okay, just making sure because there's always.
You've had an
Yeah, me neither. So, okay, great. So with that, any questions on item 3A? Okay.
I guess, you know what, my only question would be, well, no, I don't have any questions, thank you.
Okay. Moving to item 3B, the 2022 Thurston County Transportation Benefit District Annual Report. Matt,
don't be shy. He just left.
Oh, I'm back. I'm sorry. I checked out too soon. So this is an annual report that we're required per RCW to provide each year. And basically we're just reporting the accomplishments and the revenues that were collected. Obviously we're not collecting any revenues, so the report is very brief.
great, thank you. Any questions on that?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
No? Okay. And then this will be our meeting for the year, it looks like, unless there's something else that comes up. So with that, we will adjourn the meeting. Okay, next is proclamations and awards and advisory boards and commissions, and I'm handing this off to Jamie Caldwell.
Good morning. Outside of the proclamation that we're issuing today on the Board of Health, the only other one that's included in there is the draft for the Child Abuse Prevention Month that's being issued at the end of this month. Commissioner Menser's aide provided me with some edits that I will have a more refined draft for you next week as well. But if there's any other suggestions, I am more than happy to hear them. For boards and commissions, the standing applications have been included for your review. I did receive one new reappointment request to the Historic Commission, and that has been included in your packet as well. The Black Lake Special District followed up with me after our meeting last week, and the correspondence has been included. My impression of their follow-up is that they're presenting 2 recruitment options for the board to decide on and have provided the recommendation of alternative number 2. Outside of any questions, that's all I have.
Thank you. It looks like we received a letter from Mr. Stincy. Basically saying that any questions or comments on any of the appointments? I'm just reading Mr. Stincy's
No questions.
letter. So I think the Black Lake Special District is overthinking, I think, what we meant by outreach a little bit, and in terms of the cost and the alternatives that they're providing us. We just wanted them to kind of put it out there and see if there was other interest from other people, but what I'm seeing for the process here is something like mailing letters to, that's costly, and I don't, that was not when I said I would want them to do a little bit more outreach, it was for them to get the word out naturally, right? Not for them to incur cost to their special district to do outreach. Okay, I have to head upstairs. I'm wondering if maybe we can move on to another item before, and then.
Go back to Black Lake?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll hold Black Lake there, and, but we do have other, in fact, let's just hold all advisory boards and commissions, make sure he is back. So let's go to, well, we've covered proclamations and awards, so we'll just hold on number 8, on number 7, and we'll go to PIO check-in.
We don't have any updates at this time.
Okay, that was easy. Any questions, Commissioner Edwards? No. Okay, and let's go to legislative update with the county manager's updated report.
Yeah, I'm gonna just walk you through an update on the report that I provided to you. Certainly this is a moving target even as we speak. So let me begin on page 1. I'm just gonna give you an update. I'm not gonna go through each of those items. But first of all, on page 1, House Bill 1022, that's our bill related to the veteran service as well as the mental disabilities. The bill is dead. Didn't make it to the floor. Next item, this is House Bill 1024, labor and concerning the labor of and income to incarcerated persons is also dead. House Bill 1026, concerning the local government design review, this is also dead. Moving on to next page.
Is that the one with the? No, that wasn't the one with the 120-day timeline.
That's coming up. House Bill 1124 is more of a tenant protection. That's also dead. On page number 2 down the page, House Bill 1136, which is that was a big concern from my perspective. Reimbursement to employees in case they get let go from a jurisdiction. That's also dead. Moving on to page 3. A little bit below the top page, House Bill 1449. And this is amended reporting requirements for the project application processing timelines. That is dead. Didn't make it to the floor for a vote. House Bill 1492, which is providing State versus Blake, that's also dead. Moving on to page 4. Top of the page, House Bill 1519. This concerns the local project reviews. I think that was an interest from the board. That is dead as well. House Bill 1607, and that is related to raising the limit of factor of property taxes from the cap of 1% to the maximum of 3%. That's also dead. Didn't make it to the floor, to the House floor for a vote. Next is House Bill 1734. This is the providing notices regarding the less restrictive alternatives, as you know. And this is a dead, didn't make it to the floor for a vote. Last on page number 4, that's Senate Bill 5157. And this is related to Shoreline Master Program reviews, Shoreline Master Plan Program reviews, that's also dead. And moving to page number 5, that is Senate Bill, the last one, 5638, related to Lake and Beach districts, which includes the LMDs, that's dead. So next week you'll have a very reduced list of.
Ditch district bill is dead.
The ditch district is not. That passed the House, and that is
Well, that's not 1705.
no. That is House Bill 1705 on page number 4.
It says dead. Oh, the Senate's
The
dead.
Senate bill.
Okay. So it should theoretically be dead if the Senate did, right?
Not necessarily, because the companion bill, they was moving forward, that is dead, but now the House passed, the Senate needs to hear it. Whether that moves out of the Senate, that's a different question.
This is the one that said if we gave a ditch district, it would basically authorize MOUs between the two.
Yeah, what that's is, I think we.
It doesn't require us to do that, though.
There is an option to inform the districts if the local jurisdiction is planning to build a stormwater facility within the limits of the district. And also provides an option for local jurisdictions if we want the district to manage the operations and maintenance of any stormwater facilities within the limits of their district. They allow us to have an MOU. If we decide to get into an MOU for them to maintain and operate, I don't know why we will do that, but just saying, then we will be providing stormwater fees for them to manage that.
How did it turn out in court?
At this point, they're reaching a settlement. Yeah, that's all I can say.
It's not done yet.
No quite.
So, in terms of that's everything is dead. In terms of what's alive, at Innovative Justice this morning, we discussed the juvenile resentencing and points bill is still alive, and that one could be extremely impactful to us, so. That's the main one. I mean, the Blake fix bill that we talked about last week is also still alive.
Do you know if the juvenile includes the retroactive?
Yes.
Geez, that is gonna be
Not
absolutely.
only is it retroactive, it even goes one better. All resentencings have to be expedited. So everybody has to drop everything and get the resentencings done. For anyone that ever got sentenced where a juvenile point counted and in their it could be a lot.
And that is for the commissioners as House bill that passed the House floor.
I can then expunge records and all that kind of thing.
So my notes this morning, that is bill. Let's see. 1324. Exempt sex offenses, so you can count juvie points on sex offenses or some some group of sex offenses, but no other juvenile delinquency points would count. Again, good policy, but the retroactive.
The retroactive is just so burdensome. That's gonna be worse than Blake.
And no money.
Of course, another unfunded mandate.
That would be. That's it. We skipped advisory boards and commissions. We did PO check-in and legislative updates, so we can go back to advisory boards and commissions and then jump to the shoreline.
Perfect, okay. So, going back to advisory boards and commissions.
Black Lake. I just wanted to say that it's interesting that the way this letter is worded, it sounds like Black Lake doesn't have an email list for their members. Because that would be the answer, right? Like, just shoot an email out to the group. They're like, we have to mail a letter, or else we mail a letter to just the 19 people that were at the meeting. Like, you don't have an email list?
That's the impression I got as well.
Which is really, yeah. It's too bad, because that would have been the best compromise.
Yeah, it just seems really expensive and to mail a letter to.
They don't have any other mail. I mean, they don't do a newsletter or anything like that, I guess.
They don't.
I didn't ask. I mean, I can follow up and certainly ask, but it wasn't a question I had thought of asking on my own.
How do they announce the meetings?
I'm not honestly sure.
You only tell 4 people. I don't think they get the word out very good. I've heard that for quite a while.
Since the Black Lake Special Use District has taken to heart some of the suggestions from the board, asking additional questions may take that as other items they need to do. So my recommendation at this point is just let it go through this process, whether they have a recommendation for you to appoint, see where it goes. Always walking a fine line with an independently elected board.
So I'm not sure what you're suggesting, County Manager. I guess my suggestion would be to just, I don't think it was our intent to interfere with their operations. Just say, it's up to them, we're satisfied that they've considered and are gonna take steps to do outreach. It's really their call as to which alternative they want
to let the county know when they have reached a recommendation.
Let us know when you've got, when that period is, ended and they'd like us to take action. Is that okay with you guys?
I'm gonna follow your lead on this deal at Black Lake.
Yeah. That's, in agreement with that. I mean, for me, I thought they would shoot out an email saying, we have an opening, or just something different, but this is too formalized.
They have a webpage and.
Yeah, okay.
So just to clarify, when I follow up with them, would you like me to ask them to go ahead and do just reasonable outreach and then bring forward any other people that may be interested outside of Ms. LaRue that they were originally requesting appointment for?
I would say just, we're satisfied with their proposals.
Okay.
They can choose the alternative, and please let us know when they've gotten, if they get any responses to that, so that we can move forward on their appointment.
Okay.
Requested appointment.
Okay, so.
When they feel an appropriate amount of time is.
Have we received anything from the Housing Authority Committee?
I have not received any new applications, no. We did have the 2 standing ones from Mr. Cooper and Mr. Knox from last year. The newest one that I received last week was from Ms. Chilcutt, I believe is how you pronounce her name. I do believe they were still looking to try and recruit 2 additional people, but I have not received any new applications at this time.
I have a recommendation for the board to move forward on the Agricultural Advisory Committee, the Pat Levine reappointment, the Historic Commission, Rob Kirkwood reappointment, the Hotel Motel Commission, Pamela Johnson appointment. Move forward on those if that's okay with the board.
Yep.
And then, for the housing authority, how does the board wanna move on those? Do we wanna wait? Or do we want to move forward with an appointment? What's the
We have two to appoint.
three?
That would be Paul and
It would be three, Sherry, Paul, or Jim.
and there's openings of all three?
There's one opening.
Oh, there's one opening. Oh.
Well, in the, Jim and Paul were applicants for the last opening, and I interviewed them, so I guess in fairness, I should probably call Ms. Chilcutt, but I'd like to know if there's more applicants coming. So I wouldn't mind to give them a week or two to see if another applicant materializes, and then I can reach out to Ms. Chilcutt and then make my recommendation for myself.
Okay.
The additions, would you like those added to today's agenda or next week's?
It doesn't really
Okay.
matter, so it can be next week's, it's fine, yeah, whatever's easiest.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so then for the housing authority, we'll wait for a couple weeks and see if more applications come through, and then if they don't, then we'll move forward with a recommendation. Okay, great. So moving on to briefing and public hearing decisions pending. First item is the Shoreline Management Plan, SMP, and this is a follow-up briefing from March 7th.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, you were not in attendance to that briefing. It was a great conversation. The staff is here to answer any questions, but not necessarily to go through the whole briefing process. So the consensus, at least from on the conversation, was to move to authorize the staff to bring an AIS to set the public hearing. And to set the public hearing will be encompassing what I understand is the consensus, is to take the recommendations provided to you by the Planning Commission. Adding to those recommendations will be the ecology required items, also adding the ecology helpful items. So we will have a consolidated document.
What was that last one?
The desired helpful items.
Helpful?
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have.
okay.
So then moving to the public hearing will be a consolidated document. The public will provide a review. In addition to that consolidated document, we will make available the minority report the Planning Commission provided to you, and that also will be up for public review. That is probably the gist, I believe, the result of that conversation, but staff and Commissioner Edwards and Menzer are here to correct me if I'm totally off on that one. But the recommendation at this point is for you to authorize, bring an item for you to set a public hearing.
I'll just add, since we had a kind of an interesting discussion, a philosophical discussion about sending something up to public comment, before the board chews on it, and it's kind of like, my feeling was, if the gaps between the stakeholders or what the board might do is really wide, then it may be premature to send something up, that we're then gonna change a lot, because then we have to, it's like the public's gonna weigh in on something that's gonna get really changed. But my feeling was the ecology comments helped narrow that to some degree. So if we incorporate, and they're required, at least a good chunk of them are required. So I felt like if we could agree to incorporate all the ecology suggestions, that would narrow it enough that I felt like, I don't want to keep the process moving. Let's put that, and we include the minority report for people to look at as well. I was comfortable sending that package to public comment just to keep this moving. That was where I was coming from, but obviously we could. There's different ways to go about it, but that's kind of where we were landed. Let's keep it moving, and since ecology kind of helped us get it closer to where it's going to have to end up being, I thought that was helpful for me.
And I don't have any burning issue on it other than I'm in support of the Planning Commission's recommendation, because I think they worked most of that stuff out, but I think hearing from Commissioner Menzer, he wants the public to be able to comment on everything, and I don't like to hold anything back from anybody, so I'm not opposed to that, but I'm all for moving forward. Planning Commission recommendation.
I mean, the Planning Commission, we don't often do that with the Minority Report, but in this case, it's a big item. It's been worked on for a long time, and it was a 5-4. So it seems like having it there for folks to hear their opinions I thought would be useful. Even though we're going to put forward the Planning Commission recommendation with the ecology suggested amendments.
It's my understanding they've kind of worked out that they feel they've met those recommendations or those requirements of ecology. But then I guess we won't know that until it gets there for sure.
I had an opportunity to look at the briefing from March 7th and appreciate staff, appreciate the questions the board asked and the discussion that was held. You know, and also appreciate the board waiting for me until I came back to be a part of this decision. I'm on the same page. I'm having meetings in terms of the SMP to try. It is a big subject, and so I'm in agreement of all the different parts being put out for the public to be able to address them. I think the ecology points that were presented, I mean, play a huge role for me. I mean, like it, you know, I don't think we have any real turnaround with those. I feel like if ecology's saying, you know, they're required, I think that's where we're at. So I'm not opposed to moving this forward and opening it up for public comment and try to get this moving along because it has been worked on for so many years, and you know, it would be great to get it completed this year.
Closer. Get it closer, yeah. So what I'm hearing is the board is in concurrence and ask staff to bring an AIS for you to consider setting a public hearing.
And can I ask a request? Because we're probably just going to close the public hearing. My request is after this public hearing, I'm going to ask for a 2-hour work session. Because
it may require longer than that. So there'll be significant elements that you need to discuss.
Yeah,
for sure.
but I think
don't give us what you're saying. I think is like
don't give us a Tuesday morning.
An hour, you know, like let's go 2-hour chunks, as many as we need, because it's hard to get. And Andy, I want to, since he's here, our staffer. I mean, can you? Well, you guys will figure out a date based on the time. I want you to have the time you need to integrate all those suggestions, which I know you said you could do quickly, but I want to make sure it's done, you know, correctly.
Right.
All right, so that'll be a TBD in terms of.
TBD. Setting the public hearing, absolutely, it has to be in concert to how much staff effort needs to be given to this project to incorporate all of this into a single document.
I'm gonna just thank Department of Ecology for spending the time to do what they did, because we could have been chasing our tails on items that they weren't gonna approve, or you know, so it's like for them to spend the time to get those things dialed up for us, I think it's gonna save us a lot of time and aggravation. So thank you, Ecology, for these out there listening.
so. Okay. So with that, we're moving forward with the public hearing, and then after that, we will have a work session to follow. Okay. So we will see that coming up in one of our future agendas. Thank you. Okay, next, ARPA funds, allocation to court backlog. And this is a follow-up from a briefing held on March 9th. And there's one decision, correct, if I'm correct, and Robin, I'm gonna pass this on to you.
Yes, thank you. The decision that we're requesting from the board is to move additional funding to cover the costs of addressing the court backlog. Do you approve it?
This is on page 2.
Yep, it is on page 2.
Okay, just had that.
Item 236C. And commissioners had requested additional information on the FTE. So you have.
I had it, just a minute, so I know it's here. Robin just handed me that. Right in front of me.
So there are 3 graphs that show the FTEs. The first one is this. It shows going all the way back to February of 2022, about a year ago, when we first authorized funding to address the backlog. The number of full-time FTEs is the dark blue, and the light blue is part-time FTEs, or staff that are only charging part of their time to ARPA. And then you see in this little table that, for example, in January of 23, there were 7 full-time FTEs and an additional 9 FTEs that charged part of their time to ARPA. And I did a little breakdown of this to show you what types of FTEs and what offices they're in. So you see that in the month of January in particular, just picking a month to do a snapshot, there were 3 full-time defense attorneys in the Office of Public Defense. In the prosecutor's office, they had a variety of types of FTEs, if you will, who were charging part of their time. 1 full-time prosecuting attorney, 2, and 1 full-time legal assistant charging full-time, but all the rest of these were charging part-time. For example, there were 3 different attorneys who charged some of their time to ARPA, not all. And the victim advocate position is on this list, 0 hours charged to ARPA in the month of January, but I included this because 2 showed up in February, just to let you know that this is yet another resource that the prosecutor's office is adding. And then in Superior Court, they have 2 full-time positions, the jury administrator and the program manager. So these are the types of charges. Then when you look at the next graph, it shows that, at first, very few hours billed to ARPA, but around August of 22, that took a sharp increase as positions got filled. And the number of hours has been bumping along since August. It's somewhere between 1,300 to a peak in December of 1,662 hours. We think that the drop in February is just because it's a short month, so less days to charge your hours to ARPA, and then the expenditures show a similar pattern. So is there any other information that we can answer about the backlog expenses?
Did we have a decision that we were hanging out there?
We are asking that you move additional dollars out of this under consideration column into the approved column so that we cover the projected costs through the end of 24 and leave about $1 million that would cover Chandler Court lease for 25 and 26. I think it was about
3.2. We request the board to move from the under consideration column to the approved amount approved.
Okay. You're good? Okay.
Is the board okay with moving the 1.2 million from the under consideration to the approved amount?
What happens if we don't spend it?
It goes back. I mean, that's not, you're not committed to anything. It just gives the flexibility to continue to pay for the expenses with your authorization.
Right, and we do come back to you every 2 months. I think we're on a 2-month cycle for ARPA review, yep. So you'll see if it's not getting spent.
So it looks like it's all approved or under consideration then, right?
There's, at this time, yes. You have earmarked almost all of the ARPA money. There is, at the bottom of page 3, you'll see a line that says not yet allocated. So there's about $1 million that the board has not earmarked for any purpose yet. And then as we talked about last week, there's a possibility of moving a little bit of money out of some of these categories.
I guess my question would be, how come that shows that million not yet, but down on the bottom it says we're even? Awarded and approved and under consideration.
I'm sorry, what?
On page 3, the yellow on page 3.
The entire amount is approved or under consideration. Not yet allocated is you've yet to consider it.
Yeah. You have options.
Yeah.
And you have options beyond that line item in the whole report. Do I hear a consensus?
Commissioner Edwards, you. Okay. Commissioner Metzger?
Thumb up.
And thumb up for me.
Thank
you
you.
for this. I know that was I just kind of wanted to see like, okay, what is, so it's great to see that hours are being charged and that at least we're working through the backlog.
Yep.
Okay, so moving on to commissioner items, we have the courthouse renovation project cost estimate follow-up.
So, when we last brought this item to you, we came on the $50 million project that we proceeded with under the direction of the board. Then you ask, what is the $82 million project and what elements are included within the 82 million, the initial estimate. One of the main concerns was some of the HVAC systems and what is it that we're going to do with those elements in each of the buildings. So we have provided this comparison, and I will let Robin just to walk you through what, by building, the differences between the 82 and the $50 million project. But at the end of this conversation, I did like the board to reaffirm your previous direction to continue with this project.
Does that reaffirm, we haven't decided what we're gonna reaffirm or reaffirm the 50 million?
Reaffirm the 50, there's no money beyond the 50 million.
We don't get a roof for HVAC.
So you don't get that at 82 either, so.
We don't get it at 82 either?
No, so a great example is if you go, not on the first page is the summary page, but you go to page 2, and again, no page numbers, I'm sorry.
Two of this one right here?
The building one, the big chart, so building one renovation, you know we're on building one because it's at the bottom of the left-hand side of the page. And the column on the far right that's titled alternate ads, that means, for example, 677,000 and some change would be to replace the roof, and that's not part of the 50 or the $82 million. That would be on top of either one. The design firm offered it as an alternate ad, the pre-design firm. So, replacing the plumbing fixtures throughout would be an additional 227,000 rounding up. Replacing all of the lighting and all of the lighting controls would be an additional 905,000, again, rounding up. So those are alternates that you don't get under either proposal. Comparing the 50 million to the 82 million, the places that are different is the interior construction, C10, is slightly less. The interior finishes is less by about $300,000. The plumbing is less by about $300,000. The HVAC is less, it's not eliminated, but it is less by about $2 million. The fire protection is reduced. The electrical costs are reduced. And certain demolition and general condition costs are reduced. Those are the differences in building one. So it's not that there's going to be no work on the HVAC, it's just not a full replacement of the HVAC system in building one. We can walk line by line like that through every building if
So
you'd
to
like.
replace the roofing on all the buildings, it would be an additional 677,000 or 7.
Just on building one.
So that's just building one. If you look at the summary page,
Which page is that?
that's the very first page of this packet, under alternate ads. You'll see the cost in each of these buildings to replace the roofing.
So to replace the roofing, lighting and controls, plumbing fixtures.
Right, these are.
That would be a total of an additional 8,262,000.
Right. I don't know what
I'm sorry, what
acronym
was the question?
TPO is, and I apologize.
It says replace roofing with TPO.
Maybe a type of material that I'm not familiar with.
Are we still open for discussion and questions here?
Yeah, we walk
Uh,
page by page if you'd like, but.
Is there, I mean, like, I don't know what reduced fire protection means per se. I mean, aren't we obligated to do like fire code and that's just the way it is type of a thing?
The 60,000, so I'm looking at building 2 now. But if we were to look back at building 1 on the fire protection, what I am assuming is that the 90,000 would bring the building up to code for fire protection. That the higher amount would be additional sprinklers, depending on the number of extra rooms, and other measures that are beyond just what the code requires.
And that building is a wooden frame building, isn't it?
Yeah, that is a wooden frame.
Yeah, I think it is. And so, I mean, it's more susceptible to fire, you know, probably than a steel frame building. So, or a concrete building.
Sure.
So I'm just wondering, is it a smart move to put a lesser fire system in if we're going to invest capital in bringing them up to speed? I would think that fire would be one of the more important ones, along with HVAC and the roof. And then you don't have the building deteriorating, I guess, and do some of this other stuff maybe after the fact, rather than have this wait until the last.
So that is the balance. I believe. And, certainly the board can direct us just to upgrade all the systems in the building, replace the roof, and it will be zero money to address the needs in the space internally. And that is really the balance. The staff has worked on the $50 million is to what I believe address the underlying need of the courts and the partners within that building to add additional space within the means that we have, the $50 million. And it's striking a balance in terms of in the fire protection, do the fire protection that's allowed by code to accommodate the space and the tenant improvements that we have under the $50 million. Absolutely correct. I mean, we can do more, but it's no money to do everything. There is no money. So the option is that we invest everything as much as we can on upgrading the building, replacing the roof, replacing the HVAC and everything else with the same space that we have right now, because there will not be any money to do anything else with the $50 million.
So, but I mean, the roof, the lighting controls, the plumbing fixtures, the concrete detention area, the security building with restroom, I mean, that would be 8.2 million. Upgrade security building with restrooms, which one's that?
So if you remember, we proposed having a single point of entry into the buildings 1, 2, 3, a single security building. We designed that building with no restroom facility in the little building. The security staff would need to go into one of the other 3 buildings. If you wanted to add a restroom to that little standalone building, it would be an additional $500,000.
What's the big deal if they have to go to another building? Right
We
now,
don't think it is.
We don't
That's
think
why
it
we
is.
left that
We're
out.
just answering the question, Commissioner Mejia. That's what we proposed this to you, that it within the $50 million is manageable. No, everybody's is gonna have everything what they want, but it strikes a balance, I believe, in what they absolutely need.
I guess I can't imagine going to a financial institution and saying you want to borrow X number of dollars to remodel this building and have them be aware that you've got a questionable roof or a questionable heating system or a questionable fire suppression system. And that's just off the top of my head, just sitting here, that they would think that was, that would be like the Simi Valley Bank maybe has been doing business, and we know what happened to that. I just can't imagine a financial institution thinking that that made sense. Mainly those 3 things right up front, because without the proper heating system, it doesn't work. Without the proper fire system in place, your assets are at risk. And without a roof, I don't know how bad the roofs are, but we've been talking about the roofs are bad for quite some period of time. So I'm looking at it strictly from a business perspective of, I can't imagine moving forward when you don't have a roof. You know, we have a roof, or a faulty roof. So that's kind of where I'm at on this.
So we've been discussing the appearance of the mansard roofs, which I've said
I could
many
even
times
live
is
without the
not
appearance.
the real roof.
Our real roof is in good shape?
The facade.
Real roof
The
is
real roof was reviewed by the contractors. They have everything. You know, would I say that the roofs don't need replacement sometime soon? No, I'm not gonna say that. But, you know, are they in imminent danger of not, or failure? No, I don't think they are. The big risk is the HVACs, in all honesty. And we have money in building reserve. Not necessarily $2 million for building one. We've got $500,000 for building one, but we can address emergencies with the money that's in building reserves. We don't, as long as we don't wipe that out. But I think that what you see in here is there's some money for each of those systems, HVAC, electrical, fire protection, to ensure that they are up to code and address immediate concerns without replacing the entire system.
And also the $50 million has contingencies included in there just to address the.
Is there anything to the correspondence that Mr. Pettit has been sending us that the verbiage in the Ming study says we're gonna do this or that, and if we don't follow that, you know, it's not in the capital plan or something, does that matter? Does any of that stuff make any difference? I mean, are we at any?
I don't believe so, sir.
Okay. I guess I'll state where I'm at, because I was the one who kind of brought this forward. My whole situation is realistically these buildings need to last us for the next 10 years. And my concern is that structurally, are they going to be able to take us to those 10 years, right? And spacing is a big concern, and I understand that. But there's also a lot of concerns with the offices about the structural integrity of the buildings. And so I spoke with Robin, and she showed me in several of the buildings that there is some structural projects in each one of them, as well as cosmetic, even though it's not cosmetic, it's just spacing. It's what it really comes down to. And that put me more at ease. I guess my thing is, if there's money left over, which is right? I would want to move whatever funding is left specifically to maintenance projects. The roof in buildings 1, 2, and 3, for example, are a huge concern to me. And while building reserves might kind of help us get towards those 10 years, I'm just concerned. I won't say I'm not. 10 years is a long time for some of our systems who are already on their last leg and are kind of huffing and puffing by. So that's kind of where I'm at in this whole, it's, as long as we have those precautions and in place, I think can move forward with this project. I'm just.
If I may, I share the concerns, and those are the risks on any project that we embark. And this project has a lot of risk. I believe we have some strategies to eliminate the risk, but manage the risks. And my humble opinion, this strikes a balance based on the constraint. The major constraint that we have is the $50 million bond. And I believe this approach strikes that balance. And related to the roofs, if we find additional grants or money or money left over, that element of the building, it can be a standalone. Replacing a roof can go all by itself, right? And that may be one of the first elements that we can probably consider with the board if there is additional money or is any money left over.
Being that building is a wood building, has there been any poking or prodding into places where we had leaks before or something, and you know, because when you have wood, you have potential for rot if moisture gets in. If the roof leaks, then you have moisture getting in. If the roof has leaked in the past, as a general rule, that doesn't get alleviated. The problem doesn't get alleviated by fixing the roof. It's already done certain structural damage that continues to expand. So you don't think there's a possibility that through, I don't know, technology, I mean, that we'll be doing something different when it comes to maybe some locations could be continued to be farmed out somewhere, satellite offices or something. And we don't do all the expansion at this point in time. Even the electrical, if you don't get the electrical right, then you have a better chance for fire. You have, it never ceases to amaze me how wires come loose after a period of time having to do with the cycling of the electricity. I guess it's such a minute vibration, you wouldn't hardly know it, but I guess it does happen, and then you have fires. So I guess the fire suppression and the electrical.
Part of the cost of the redesign, or the pre-design, was assessment of the buildings.
Just what?
Assessment of each of the buildings. Now, they didn't take out a wall and look to see if there was rot or go crawling in the ceilings, but they did an assessment of each building, and we asked them, what do we need to make them last 10 years? And again, strike a balance between what do we need for the structure of the building and what do we need to address the space needs of our offices and departments. This is what they've recommended to us. Can I say there's not a possibility? No, I can't say that. There's always a possibility of things happening.
But this building is structurally sound. I mean, it survived an Nisqually earthquake.
Right.
And all the earthquakes we have locally, and it was, as I recall, on the Nisqually earthquake, never a single crack.
It didn't shake. We're on a solid hill there.
So it was, but it's really just it's structurally sound, and again, there's always a risk on everything that we do, and I don't want to come across there is no risks on this approach. There are risks, okay. Yeah.
Recognizing that there are risks, and I don't want to say any disparaging remarks against any businesses, but I've been around a long time, and for an example, you're going to fix up a house, and you have a roofing company come in, the roof looks, okay, the bank wants it fixed before you move forward, and it very seldom does it ever happen that you take the old roof off and just put the new roof on, and that's it. It's usually, they take the old roof off, and oh, damn, over here where this valley comes together, this has been leaking, or, you know, around the eaves themselves, and you're replacing some trusses, and you're replacing some plywood or pressed wood or whatever the material is, you discover things when you do a roof. Now, I don't know much about these big commercial buildings, but I think they have to look into all that stuff when they do a new roof. I don't know that. That's why I'm nervous of, and I realize there's risk, but that's kind of where I'm at on how do you know you're putting your investment into something that's gonna be beneficial for the long run if you don't protect the general asset through a roof, just through a roof. But these other things like fire suppression and electrical and all that. I mean, the plumbing didn't bother me too much because I don't know, it's either gonna leak or not. You know if the plumbing is leaking. But, you know, building bathrooms for everybody and stuff, I just don't think they're that important. So I'm just not there yet. So, but that's okay. It's a democratic process. I'm the old guy that's been around too long.
20% contingency.
What's that?
20% contingency is part of the requirement of design build.
So what is the pleasure of the board?
Commissioner Munster, you've been quiet.
I support the plan that's been presented.
You want to do a thumbs up, thumbs down?
Yeah, because we have a scheduled series of steps. Next week, we have an interview with the state panel to authorize the county to go with the progressive design build. And that is an attempt for us to stay within the 50 million. As you heard, construction cost increases. If we were to deviate whatever, you know, direction the board wants to take us, it's gonna be, take us more time, but it's gonna be, it's not that it's gonna be more expensive. It's gonna be able to do less from the 50 million. So at this point is really what the board's direction is. And I think we have explained our proposal from the staff point of view. We have laid out the next steps. If you need additional information, let us know, but I think we have addressed what I think the board has requested.
So I think I did this on got so many versions of this. 82. Yeah, never mind. I think I've got.
Can I just ask one more question?
Yes, sir, and then we'll go ahead and.
I guess my last comment is that we're not doing everything that could possibly be done, but in each building, there are elements of the essential infrastructure. So everything's gonna be upgraded. I mean, significant money is being spent in every building on fire protection, HVAC. It's not what could be done, but it's not chump change. It's so, you know, the whole point was to go through these buildings, try to make them 10 years or plus viable, both in terms of space and infrastructure. And it seems to me like this is a balanced approach with the budget we have, and it's integrated with the you know, I would feel really uncomfortable after we dialed every single department up exactly to their needs and built in 3000 Pacific to go, you know what, those buildings aren't that good. You guys just fend for yourselves. Leave building one empty in the courts, you've got everything you need, don't worry about it. We're gonna replace the roofs and the HVAC, so I can't conceive of making that decision, so. This has all been set, in my opinion. Staff has done exactly what we asked them to do, and done the best we can with limited resources.
And the meetings I've had with the courts, I mean, they're saying that this is not even close to addressing their needs, right? And it's not like staff hasn't done what we asked them to do with the money they did, but you know, still I heard quite clearly from them, and so, you know, Robin did walk me through the plan of it, and she did show me the places where structural projects were included in it, and that made me feel more comfortable in terms of of moving forward, because I did have those concerns, and I was very honest with Robbins. I was like, I'm scared that these buildings are gonna fall within each other, and then what are we gonna do? But seeing that there's, just walking through the plans and seeing that in those plans, there are specific projects to maintain the integrity of the buildings, that makes me feel more comfortable. Knowing that if there is a possibility of additional money, which again, I know it's a huge long shot, but if there is, to kind of do some more of these structural projects, so at least we can maintain these buildings a little bit longer. Because you're right, it might be more than 10 years, right? 10 years is kind of what I'm going with what we're leasing here, but it might be more. And so just with that, you know, I am comfortable in moving forward. And at this time, Commissioner Edwards.
Do we know how much money we've spent on maintenance on those buildings over the last 10 years? Do you know that off the top of your head?
Look that up, I don't have that, you know, off the top of my head, but
At some point, I'd like to hear that, just to the, you know, what we've been investing in the buildings. And then, I don't know, you know, we can always wait, right? We can wait, but we seem like we wait forever. But I'd rather do it right than do it half right, I guess. And so we have as a county, and none of us were here during some of those issues, but we've made some mistakes as time went on. And I don't know, maybe the most glaring one right off the top of my head would be the 3400 building over in Mottman that we kept for about 15 or 17 years or something, millions of dollars, upgraded it and sold it at a loss. And I just think we should always try to do it right rather than half right, because you have a better chance of going past that time frame you might be shooting for. Because boy, government doesn't move very fast. And I don't know, it looks like we're kind of scheduled to be here for 10 years, so. I don't know, I can't imagine if I was in the banker's seat that I'd be wanting to go ahead with a building that had, you know, questionable heating or roof, so. So I'm just not with you yet. Part of the problems of being old.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is Commissioner Messer, Commissioner Mejia are supporting the $50 million plan as presented, and Commissioner Edwards is not.
Yeah, with the democratic process.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. We're moving forward with that 2-1. Thank you.
Okay, it is 12:36. Are there any commissioners' items that are pressing that commissioners would like to discuss at this time? I know.
The only, we were briefed on something this morning. I'd just like, any way we can figure that out to make sure the Board of Health can do something about that whole problem. I'd like to see that happen this afternoon. Because I just
You want
don't.
it to be in the public meeting?
I don't know that, no, I'm not saying that.
I can't do that.
Yeah, not saying that. I'm just saying,
I
out of
can't.
fairness to them,
I can probably do the same.
we're gonna be talking about that topic today, and I don't know how to do it, but I just wanna make sure that they're at least advised, you know, this is a real deal, we can't do it in public, so. Whatever the county manager can work out or something, I think.
Okay.
Pretty darn important, so.
Okay.
No, I'm good, survive for another day.
Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.